Good morning. My name is Avis, and as Clifton mentioned, I work with the City of Dallas in the Housing and Neighborhood Revitalization Department. I'm so glad to be here this morning to talk to you about our programs in our department with the City of Dallas. I'd like to thank Clifton as well as the Empire Series. I mentioned yesterday at the Lunch and Learn, this is an amazing vehicle for people. It's a tribute to you guys to be here to learn and to self-improve yourself. So I appreciate you all being here. So I'm going to talk about today our home buyer assistance program at the city. I wanted Charmaine to go first because our program is a part of that home buyer process. So the City of Dallas in the home buyer process, we're one of the lenders. We provide assistance, our program, and it's been around since 1991 for down payment and closing costs. And now, as of last fall, we also do principal reduction. Just a little background, I mentioned that we started in 1991 and we've been serving over almost 8,000 families since that time, getting people into homes. The goal is to have home ownership in the City of Dallas, and not just concentrated, but spread throughout the City of Dallas. One of the things that just recently happened in May, on May 9th, we adopted a comprehensive housing policy. And so as part of that housing policy, we made changes to this program in particular. Previously, we had caps on our income limits. We can only serve individuals or households earning 80% or below of area median income. But with the housing policy, we are able to increase that up to 120%. So we're serving a greater income band and having more people the opportunity to live in different areas of Dallas. So our program, again, as I mentioned, we provide down payment, closing costs, and principal reduction. So you do have to come in and submit an application with the City of Dallas. I recommend, like when you're shopping for your lenders, you come see us as well. One of the first things that we do require, we require you to take a home buyer counseling course. And that course, you'll get a certificate. It'll teach you all about home ownership, because with home ownership comes responsibilities. And we want to make sure that our home buyers that we're putting in our homes are sustainable home buyers and that they're keeping their homes for the long haul. So we do require you to take home buying counseling courses, and they have to be our approved counselors, and we have a list on our website. I hope everybody got the brochure. It has a lot of information about our program, and it also on the back has our website address where you can get more information about our application, about our program requirements, and about the process. One of the other things that we require, you have to have an approved lender. We have approved lenders that you have to go through, and approved title companies and realtors. So please visit our website to make sure you're working with those who are familiar with our program, because it makes the process a lot easier if you have someone who's familiar with these programs. Because as Clifton mentioned, the City of Dallas is not the only entity that offers these programs. So just a little bit about the process. So I mentioned the home buying counseling course. You do have to take that. You can't let it lapse for a year. If it's a year old, you have to take it again. But there are resources to where they are free. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. The next step is you come in and submit an application. Like I said, we are a lender, so we have quite a bit of information that we ask for. One of the requirements of our program, we require you to have a $1,000 contribution. We look at your last 2 months' pay stubs for your employment. We also want to make sure once you get pre-qualified with the lender and you know what your monthly mortgage will be, we have to make sure, we require you to have at least 2 months reserves in your bank account. So that means that you are able to cover 2 months of your mortgage reserved in your bank account. So that's one of the things that we look at. So we ask you for all of your dependents and the borrower to submit your bank statements. And then we look at, you have to submit your social security cards, your W-2s, because one of the other things is our programs, the way we calculate your income to determine income eligibility, we look at all taxable income as sources of income. So those are the things that you'll have to submit whenever you're applying with us. So once we get your application, we'll do an initial underwrite to see how much assistance you could qualify for, and we'll also look at how much you can afford in a home. Charmaine mentioned debt-to-income ratios. The city, as a lender, looks at debt-to-income ratios to make sure that you are not paying more than you should in a home. Most people look and say that what a person can afford is 30% of their adjusted gross income can go, you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your adjusted gross income on housing. If you do that, you're what you call cost burden, and you're paying most of your income to live versus having disposable income to pay for medical bills, to pay for utilities, things of that nature. So the city does look at that, and we call that your front end ratio. So we're looking to make sure you're not paying more than 30% of your income on your housing. And then the next thing we'll look at your other debt. Your other debt makes up your back end ratio. So your other debt plus your housing payment cannot exceed more than 43% of your adjusted gross income. If you exceed that, then that means you have too much debt and you won't be able to afford to stay in the home. So those are those ratios that Charmaine was looking at. So we'll do all of that whenever you submit your information, and we'll give you what we call a preconditional letter to let you know we've looked at your application, we've determined that you're eligible for our programs, but here's the other items that we need. We need to see your sales contract. We need to make sure that your inspections have occurred. We need to see your appraisal. We need to make sure your title is clean. We also need to make sure that your home is inspected and it meets our minimum housing standards, because the city does have minimum housing standards because a lot of the resources that we have are federal funds. So we have to make sure that you're in a home that's safe, sanitary, and accessible when we use federal funds. The other thing with our federal funds, because I mentioned the sales contract, the reason why we have to see your sales contract, we have requirements where, because it's affordability, right? Where for existing properties, your house purchase can't be more than $212,000. And then for new construction, your sales price cannot exceed $241,000. So we have to make sure if you're using our federal resources, you stay in that income range. So if you have questions about that, you can always give us a call. So after you get your home, your sales contract, and we look at all of your option, your title company, during your option period that Char mentioned, your title commitment, your appraisal, and your inspections to make sure everything's good to go and you're ready to close. We will also do another underwrite. So as everybody said, don't spend money. The one thing you don't want to touch, especially, is your reserves, because I've seen it happen a lot where people, we have all this money built up and they want to spend it, but you can't, because you have to make sure that you have that 2 months in reserves at all times until you get past closing. We also, on the closing disclosure, we need that. That was mentioned by the lender because that will help us do our final underwrite. And once we complete the final underwrite, you will have to sign, we have a home buyer written agreement that you sign. If you use for us, affordability and you staying in your home is key. So as a lender, we require you to keep your home as your principal residence, depending on the amount of assistance, for either 5, 10, or 15 years. So that means you have to stay in that home as your primary residence for that period of time. If you do not stay in that home for that period of time, then you will have to repay the city back that assistance if you resell the home, if you lease it, or dispose of it at any point. So you have to be aware that depending on the amount of assistance, you have to stay in that home as your primary residence for that period of time. Our loans are loans. They are 0% interest loans, so you don't, and there's no payments required. The only time you have to repay the city is if you resell, like I said, if you resell, lease, or do a contract for deed or dispose of the property. We, as a lender, we will secure our loan, so we will file a lien on your property just like any other lender. So be aware of that. And like I said, make sure that you're not in violation of your contract. Does anybody have questions? Because that's pretty much it.
Yes, you mentioned that you would have to stay 5, 10, or 15. What is the difference?
It depends on the amount of assistance that is provided. So yeah, so if for 5 years, it's if you have $15,000 or less in assistance, it's 5 years. If you're between 15 and 20,000, it's 10, and if it's over 20,000, it's 15 years.
What about the areas? You said this is city adult, what about it? Is it a cap in certain areas where you provide this, or do you have to?
It's citywide. It's citywide. It's city of Dallas city limit. Yes. So it's not Dallas County, but the county does have a similar program.
So what is considered the city of Dallas?
So on our website, we have where you can find an address you can type in an address to determine if it's in the city limits.
Then if somebody lives outside of the city of Dallas, where do you suggest they go to determine the access point?
So like I said, pretty much every governmental jurisdiction has a similar program. If you can't find one in a county or a city, or if our resources are limited, it's first come, first served basis, I should state that. So come in as soon as you possibly can to contact us, because once our funds run out, our program halts until we can get more funds. We do replenish at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is October 1. The state also has a program. It's they call it TSHAC. It's the Texas State Affordable Housing Corporation. So they have resources as well that are similar, and I believe their income limits are higher. There are also some housing finance corporations that have programs too, where they do mortgage certificates. I think Southeast Texas Housing Finance Corporation has a program. They're called SEF. Yeah. Yes, I was going to mention that. So on June 28th, we are hosting a home ownership event. So it starts at 9:30. From 9:30 to 10:30, it will be for potential home buyer applicants to come out, meet staff to learn about our program, and to walk you through the process. And then we'll have realtors come in at 11. Between 10:30 and 11, and we'll have a networking. So if you don't have a realtor, maybe you can find a realtor at our event. And then the final session of the day will be with our lenders, because all realtors and lenders are critical for our program and making the process smoother. So we want to make sure that they're educated about the process as well. And so that's going to be June 28th at City Hall in our auditorium on the lower level.
The home buying counseling classes, are they classes that companies or organizations that you select for the recipient, or because the Empower Series, they offer home buying, workshops, so is it something that we can do with them?
Yeah, they have to be listed on our website. They have to be a HUD-approved counseling program. So if you have a home buying counseling course, you need to come.
We're going to do that, but Dr. Prescott, as foreman, has some information.
Yes. We have Transformers here on the back table. We are HUD certified. We're one of the 3 big HUD certified agencies in the area, and we partner with every major lender from Texas Lending, Bank of America, and we have the home buying certifications. We offer it in one of 3 ways, and it's free. A face-to-face meeting, Spanish and English, 3rd Saturday of each month from 9 to 3 o'clock, and we do serve you lunch. We can also do it by phone, and we do that every day by phone. I call it 1-800-247-2227, or we have an app. And you can go onto our website, download the app, and you can take it at your leisure. And all 3 ways, the home buying certificate will print out with the HUD stamp on it, our name signed to it, and your name on it. And you can combine it. And Avis, you can talk about that, how you could combine programs that we offer through our partners through the city programs.
Yes, so as he mentioned, there's a ton of resources out there. So you can layer other resources, and what we do under our underwrite, because we only give you the amount of assistance that you need, but I take advantage of all the resources that are out there. It would be critical for you to have other resources so you can limit the amount of your affordability period, limit the amount of subsidy that we provide so your affordability period could be shorter. One of the other things I would like to mention is make sure your applications are complete. Because if you're missing information, that does delay the process. And if you have questions about your application, you please feel free to contact staff. Once you submit your application, staff will schedule an appointment and you'll come in and meet with staff and they'll go over the contract requirements. So you'll have a full understanding of what it means to receive assistance under our program. Because there are requirements as the city providing assistance and being a lender as part of your purchase.
Avis, yesterday you talked to the group about the city's new housing policy.
Yes.
Can you touch on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so I mentioned on May 9th, we adopted a comprehensive housing policy. The housing policy, it's a data-driven policy. We worked with Reinvestment Fund to do what they call a market value analysis. And so the market value analysis is based on indicators. It looked at foreclosures, it looked at sales price, it looked at subsidized housing to come up with different market areas in the city, and they rated them from A through I. And so your A through C markets are your markets that are doing relatively well. Then you have your middle markets, which are your D, E, and F. And then you have G, H, and I markets, which are distressed and are in need of assistance. So what is key about this market value analysis, what the city is doing and what we did with our adopted comprehensive housing policy is making data-driven decisions and where to place so the city's resources and where it's most needed. In order to do that, with the market value analysis, we designated reinvestment target areas or strategy areas. There's 3. There's a redevelopment area, and there's a stabilization area, and then emerging markets. So your redevelopment areas are areas that are doing relatively well, and they're on a cusp of really taking off. And the city is aware of a project that could happen within a catalytic project that can happen within the next 12 months. What we would like to do with our resources in these areas is to make sure that there's affordable housing and that it's not all market so that we can have mixed income housing in those areas. And so that's housing, if it's rental, from 30% of area median income all the way up to 120%. So working with developers who partner with us to do that housing to ensure that they're setting aside housing for affordable housing. Our next area, the stabilization, so that's kind of in your middle markets, the D, E, F, that are surrounded by your emerging markets, the G, H, and I, or distressed areas, G, H, and I, that are where we could hopefully find linkages to help those markets that are G, H, and I that are adjacent to the middle markets to grow, where hopefully leakage could happen to cause housing or the sales prices to go up and encourage growth. The problem is we want to make sure, because there's existing affordable housing in those markets, that affordable housing does not get displaced, because there could be a lot of rehab, it could be a gentrifying area. So we want to make sure that it happens steadily and housing is not being displaced and people aren't being displaced. So our resources will be dedicating to make sure that we keep affordable housing intact in those areas. The last market is our emerging market, and I mentioned that's distressed areas. Those are areas that right now might not be encouraging new growth, but we're focusing on preserving existing housing. And then the city would dedicate its resources to doing code compliance cleanup, security cleanup, to fix crime, putting in infrastructure. So within the next 3 years, new construction can come in and take place. But we want to make sure that we're preserving and bringing up the existing housing stock in those areas.
What was the first one you said?
Redevelopment.
And the last one, the emerging, is that what they're doing to Redbird area?
So Redbird actually has 2. There's a Redbird North and there's a Redbird area. So there's a stabilization and a redevelopment area. But yes, so the actual mall would be kind of like the redevelopment where a project is about to take place in the next 12 months. Mm-hmm.
So in general, you said the income requirement has been increased to 120% of median income. So give us a sense of what that is for an individual or 3 or 4
Right. So for at 120%, so a one person at 120%, they would earn about $64,848, and a family of four, that's at $92,640. So that's pretty, professional working households. This is your working class, middle class. The goal is to bring back the middle class to Dallas, so people can live and work in the city.
One of the things we thought about is you hear about the high net worth families. They have the ability when their children graduate from college, they have enough money to give them a down payment for a home to live in a neighborhood that's beyond their normal ability to do so. But when you look at this, where an individual who makes $60,000 or more could possibly afford some assistance from the city of Dallas, makes a lot of sense because a college student may come out making between $40,000 and $50,000 a year. And as a parent, if you want to assist them to understand home ownership as opposed to renting, you can assist them with some additional cash. So if they have the $1,000 in reserves, the 2 months of mortgage payments, and if they have credit, they could probably apply for this to help them get into a first home instead of renting.
That's exactly right. So you can build equity earlier. I will say that if cash donations does count as income, so you have to be careful with the amount of donation that you provide to make sure that they stay within those income limits. Yes, ma'am.
Is there like a lot of houses available for qualified?
So that's a great question, and we talked about this yesterday. So the question was, there's a lot of people that come through our program or that qualify for our program. Is there a lot of housing available for those individuals to purchase homes? So the unfortunate matter is right now we have an affordable housing crisis. And so that was one of the things that was key with the comprehensive housing policy. We have a goal under our housing policy for rental and single family to produce 20,000 units over a 3-year period of time. The problem is we have a lot of people who are qualified for assistance, but at the particular price point where it's affordable for individuals and households to purchase a home, there's a shortage of housing supply. As Charmaine mentioned earlier, there's bidding wars that are going on. It's a seller's market, so houses are not staying on the market quick enough, and there's not housing being produced fast enough at that particular price point to make it affordable for the middle class to come back. So our goal under the housing policy is also to provide housing for people to move into, as well as providing assistance, working with our development partners. So one of the things that we have our dollars available is for private partnerships with developers to produce housing. So we're going to issue a notice of funding availability to kick that off, so we can start preserving and bringing in new housing to the city. Right now it really is tough to find a house in that particular price point, because what's happening, builders are choosing to build larger homes at higher price points because they can get a better return than doing homes at this particular price point, because labor, construction, lumber, all of that is going up. So they are looking at doing bigger, more expensive homes versus affordable homes.